So starting from last week, we started talking about some our body systems. If you remember that, we started from cell organelles to cells, tissue making the organs, we're gonna make the systems, and system make the organisms, all that kind of related to. So we're specifically talking about gas exchange. I've been spending quite a lot of time to discuss about why we need to have a gas exchange too, the purpose of that, and how we actually achieve that all the two. So let's kind of revise that for our respiratory, the system. So let's write it down to summarize and point as this. What's the purpose of the respiratory systems? Ellie, what's the purpose of the we have in the respiratory system all the times?
To reduce the loss of water. Reduce the loss of water.
Lots of water.
The
Reduce.
loss of water from.
In short, why do you breathe in and out?
To get an oxygen.
To get the oxygen and
Use it as a cell.
okay, why are you breathing out?
Reduce the
Carbon dioxide. So it's basically all about gas exchange, specifically like O2 and CO2. As you know, CO2 is used for the respiration and producing the energy or ATP from that. CO2 is basically removal of that too, can cause some acidosis of the blood. Therefore, we have to remove that too. Or you may just say this is a byproduct of the respiration as well. Okay, so that's the purpose of the respiratory system. Then, to achieve that efficient gas exchange, Daniel, what's the characteristics of the any of the respiratory system, whether that's mammals, fish, or the insect? What's the characteristics?
Characteristics of the respiratory system. For mammals take in air through.
Doesn't matter for the mammal though, but okay.
So for fish,
Anything.
Fish swim in water, and water has dissolved oxygen particles inside.
How do they efficiently get the exchange then?
Well, they swim with their mouth open, and then the water enters the mouth, and then what do you call it? The oxygen diffuses at the gills.
That's not a characteristic or efficiency. That's what they do. You're missing the question. How efficiently do they achieve that the gas exchange?
They increase the surface.
Yeah. Didn't we talk about a lot of time the large surface area to volume ratio? Okay. How do they increase the large surface area to the volume?
They get flatter cells.
Flattened cells. So it's also related to thinness. I mean, you should have the answers in the worksheet or the workbook, because one of the questions about how efficiently increase their. Here you go, page 69. Can you have a look at your answer, please? In terms of how we increase that thinness. What else? We need to have the moisture. Why is it better to have a moisture? Don't just think about why we have a moisture, Daniel. Why do we think we are moisturizing all the respiratory system?
Gas has to dissolve to be able to diffuse.
Yeah, so it dissolves better in the diffuse form. Very good. That's something we have to think about it, guys. When you got a cold or you got a dry cough, you don't really get a good amount of the oxygen the gases exchanges too. And that's why you get a cold, the flu as well too. And the last one is probably I ask you to write it down as STIP, the concentration gradient. Why is that? Having the more of the difference between the concentration and in and out of the cells, we are able to achieve that faster, efficient gas exchange as well too. Key features. So it doesn't matter like what I'm talking about mammals, I'm talking about like a fish or even the insects. They all have this kind of characteristics of the large surface area to the volume, thin kind of the tracts. For mammals, we have the alveoli, okay, and like in the lungs, kind of set kind of structures too. And in fish, they have the gills, as you know, the large surface area. Insects, what do they have in insects? Should have the answers. For insects, what do they have? They have a tracheal system with the so instead of their breathing in there through the mouth or the some taking the waters in like a fish, they on the body they have the holes like the small spores called the spiracles. So they are able to just get the absorb the oxygen and CO2 gas exchange really quickly too. Guys, we only did one system, and you're missing quite a lot of details there. So consider about it. You actually need a details to fill it up, not just simply, everyone knows that. We breathe in through the mouth and nose. But I want more in terms of how do we increase the maximize the gas exchange, all that too. Similar things going to be happening for the next one. Let's move on to the next topic. So page 72, please. Digestive system. It's a system we're going to talk about today. So what is a digestive system? It simply means that we are eating something, okay? And eating and digesting. But have you ever wondered what actually meaning of the digestion? Digestion. We're eating something. We're just simply not eating something. Digestion. It's page 72, the first point here. The foods you eat is the source of many of the raw materials your body needs for the metabolism. Especially if we think about our heterobials. Can we create our own energy by ourselves? Can we go out under the sun and get the photosynthesis? No, we're not. This means we need to somehow get the foods into our like a mouth or our systems to kind of digest them, kind of dissolve them, kind of break them so that we can use the forms of the energy of structuring your bodies, all that kind of things. So every part that involve in the some dissolving and or like breaking down or even absorbing the nutrients called the digestive systems. So let's have a look at some of the diagram related to that, as you probably know. So let's start from A. It's a mouth, I know that too, but it's a tongue. This is something we do. It started with this too. So think about when you're eating something. You started with your mouth. I mean, you don't eat with your anus. You don't eat your nose, do you? You always start with the mouth. You chew it. So teeth and the tongue is one part of your digestive system, I would say. It goes to the straight down in here on the top of the that we call the gland, the saliva. Saliva, the gland. This is the way you get the saliva comes out from the too. So, or you may see like saliva gland over here too. So, if you think about where the saliva is kind of generated to, it's underneath your tongue. Okay, you can actually touch it. To have a feel of the saliva gland, by open your mouth, place your tongue underneath your tongue, like this, and you can actually sense that there's the saliva coming generated too. It also comes from the back of your nostrils too. It's coming back into. So think about there's a saliva coming in this point and that point. Make some kind of lubricant of the foods. And you probably know what I mean. Like if you're eating something that's really dry, absorbing all the moisture too, you probably know the feeling of that eating the food without the saliva. It's really hard to swallow. It's hard to chew and swallow. It actually hurts a lot. So saliva has a lot of function of that too. We're going to discuss a few. And goes, don't worry about the G, it goes to that long narrow tube called the oesophagus. Now, this tract is not same as a tracheal tract. This is very separated too. So larynx and pharynx too. So you probably have like some issue with when the food goes to the wrong track, you get a choking. Basically, that's what happens because that from the oesophagus to the larynx, they're kind of connected too. So food can go up to the different tubes. Goes up to here, you may see the liver. is L2, and we may see the stomach. It's given here too. Okay, and it goes to another part. Does anyone know? Can you see the little portion there? Do you know what they call? Pancreas. Any other name? Any other guess? Have you ever heard about the gallbladder? Gallbladder. I mean, I'm talking about a little small place here. This is called gallbladder. Okay, it's actually one word, gallbladder, in the one word, so I have to say G-A-L-L-A, gallbladder. Now, pancreas, the J is a pancreas. And then coming after stomach, it goes to the something known as the large intestine. It's actually coming to the small intestine first. Okay, and it goes to the last, and from the large intestine to the rectum. And after the rectum, it goes to the final destination of the waste product, with the anus goes there too. Now, the small piece of that, from the mouth to the connection to the oesophagus, is actually known as epiglottis. It's good to know the point of that too. And saliva or salivary gland is actually the correct name of that too. And we have a pharynx and larynx, teeth and mouth has got to relate all that too. Okay, this is a typical like in some human digestive system. So good to know like what the naming of that too, where they're located. Now, one thing that I discussed about like a respiratory system is if you have a brain, the brain is the most important part, because if it gets turned off, basically you're dying. Okay. Now, this is the reason why all the respiratory system, circulatory system, your heart and lungs are located really close to the brain. Think about distance from here to there, it's really short. Okay, now your digestive system is located further down of your respiratory system and circulatory systems. So it goes down for the purposes too. In the case of your body's in the emergent situations too, you have to forgo some of the systems. They actually give it up your digestive system quite a lot of times too. And this is kind of evident if you're sick, if you're really, really sick, and if you've got a flu or like some kind of viral infections too, you don't really have an appetite to eat something. You don't feel like you're eating, but you still need to breathe. You still need to pumping your blood as well too. Because due to that, your body kind of automatically programmed to, hey, let's give it up the system, just get all the energy to your brain, to the heart, to the respiratory system, so that you can get recovered. Okay, so got to think about how the system can working collaboratively later on too. But let's talk more about digestive system. So this is the anatomy of the human digestive system for now. Any questions for where they are? Okay. Actually, I bring my models. I bought that last time. Got to bring it last time too. Okay, here you go. His name is Max. Okay, so we have Max here. Can you see like inside of that? I just need to lift out of this here. There's the lungs. There's the liver. Liver's really big, by the way. It's on the knees of the lung straight away. There's a heart. Let's remove that. Okay, we're interested about the digestive system here. Now, stomach is actually right on the top of the livers. No, the bottom of the livers too. Liver is right bottom of the lungs here too. So remember the shape, and inside that we have a gallbladder that look like this. Gallbladder is located inside, and we have a pancreas or the kidneys behind that. Kidneys actually located right behind the stomach. They look like this, kind of indicating that there's a function kind of related all together, which is the excretory systems, and we have the system of the large intestine, small intestine kind of given to, with the rectum and anus. Okay. You can play with that later too if you want to recombine them. That's fine. So let's talk about a little bit of functions of the digestive system then. Next page, please. The digestive system has how many functions? 3 main functions. 1, digestion of foods, absorption of the nutrients, and the elimination of solid food waste. Highlight that, please. It's all about digestions, absorption, and eliminations. Then what does it really mean by digestion? Digestion is given the next sentence there. It's the process of the breaking down food into a component that body can absorb too. So if you have a piece of bread, it means that there are a lot of, like, you chew it and you're absorbing is excuse me, the nutrients as you go. So in terms of digestions, we have a few type of digestions ongoing. One is something known as the mechanical digestion. So what does it mean by mechanical digestion? We simply mean we're using some mechanical power to break down into from large to small. For example, chewing is a perfect example of that too. Why do you chew? Why do you like break those breads? To what? From the piece of bread, when you're chewing, there's some crumbles of the bread in your mouth too. By then, what you do is you are increasing the surface area to the volume of the bread. Instead of having the little piece of the bread like this, if you chop it using the teeth and the tongue, you're able to get a large surface area to the volume. It's not about the volume, guys. It's all about the ratio between the large surface area to the volume ratio. So that it's kind of giving the digestion take mainly in the mouth and the stomachs too. Your stomach also do, like, they move. You can actually see that you're grumbling, making a sound of your stomachs too, because due to that, stomach is actually moving, kind of like shaking, vibrating, so that it's basically like, you can think about the piggyback with the coins. We're basically shaking that to furtherly, like, it's breaking that into small pieces. Second type of the digestion is known as, obviously, the chemical digestion. And this is the chemical breakdown of the large complex food molecule into smaller, simpler nutrients molecules that can be absorbed by the blood. And this type of digestion begins in the mouth and the stomach, but occurs mainly in the small intestine of that too. So after food, have a think about here. You eat the food. Okay, you only be conscious up to here, the mouth. You're consciously, I think, like, you're chewing that. Think about it. Your saliva is helping to lubricate, like, all the foods you have, like a piece of bread. Think about it. Then you're making it into small pieces. You swallow it. Now it goes to oesophagus, goes to tract up to your stomach over here. Okay, in the stomach, you may think like stomach is actually moving to further breaking that into. So you may just think about from small pieces, like further small pieces. Then the chemical digestions, they can start to occur from all the processes given all that times too. And then it's given the next point, please. After food is digested, the resulting nutrients are absorbed. Absorption is the process in which the substance passes into the bloodstream where they can circulate through the body. Absorption of the nutrients occurs mainly in the small intestine as well too. So that's the place that we get absorbing all the required nutrients, and sometimes be duodenums too. And then any remaining matters from the food and it cannot be digested and absorbed passes into the large intestine and the waste. The waste later passes of the body through the anus in the process called the elimination. So let's talk a little more about these in terms of the mechanical digestions. So where does mechanical digestion start with? It started with your mouth. As I said, the whole purpose of the mechanical digestion is we want to break that into small pieces so that we can increase the surface area to the volume to the max as much as possible too. So it's basically food break the food in small pieces by cutting, tearing, chewing, and grinding the foods as well too. This is why your teeth have different shapes. Okay, think about where do you use the teeth? Your grinder, your molar, you have a teeth at the front too. You're tearing and that too. And depends on what foods they're consuming too. Mammals have a different shape of teeth as well too. I'm talking about the shape of teeth of the lion or dogs, which is the herbivores, which are carnivores, compared to those who are eating on the grass, like a rabbit or the deer, or the kangaroos too. Okay, that shape, however, all of those have the same function of that we want to decrease the surface area. So we are basically chewing, grinding, and tearing all that foods too. what more important is happens in the mouth in the chemical digestions. So, mouth is the first digestive organ the food enters, and could you highlight that please? We first sight, smell, or taste the food stimulate the release of digestive enzyme by salivary glands inside the mouth too. So your brain is looking, your eyes are looking into food. Your brain's ordering that, hey dad, say that to the mouth, say it to the gland, this is gotta be delicious. So even if you don't eat something, you know that you can actually produce some saliva by looking at the picture of the food as well too. It's kind of stimulating the glands by looking at that. So getting ready to receive the food. Inside the saliva, we have an enzyme, salivary enzyme called the amylase. Highlight that please. And this is the enzyme that is the breaking down starch into sugar. So from the really complex carbohydrates into the starch, making into sugar form. So this is the reason why when you're chewing like a bread, you actually have a sensation of that kind of sweet. You can feel the sweetness from that too, even though there's no sugar inside of that. Because amylase kind of breaking those down into the really simple sugar forms. And then the mouth also begins the process of mechanical digestion. As I said, sharp teeth and the front mouth cut off the tear food, and you bite into it, and broad teeth into the back of the mouth, grind food when you chew. And this is basically making the easier by moisturized by the saliva and from the salivary gland, and tongue helps mix the food with the saliva, helps you swallow. Okay, and then after you swallow the chew, food passes into the pharynx, which is the back of your mouth, that too, and then goes to the oesophagus after that. Pretty easy. Probably know what I'm talking about by looking at this, the photo, the picture of that too. Can you see that larynx? There's a tongue, the jaws, and all they kind of related to. But unless you want to be a dentist, unless you want to be someone like working in the hospital, you don't really need to know all the details too for now. Okay, I'm just trying to give you some basic understanding about digestive system. Oesophagus is basically after from the pharynx, the food moves into the oesophagus. So that's, I would describe that as a long, narrow tube that goes into down. Now, here's a myth. Do you think the food moves through the oesophagus because of gravity? There was actually some kind of like small like demonstration investigation. What if you stand upside down, try to eat something? I mean, you can imagine that, oh, it's got to really hard to swallow. It's hard to pass the food to your stomach, through the oesophagus too. Okay, the researchers found that out. It's actually oesophagus themselves kind of have a muscle motions too. So what they do is, it's like you have a pipe, you're kind of pumping that down and squeezing that into downwards too. Oesophagus can actually move inside due to the muscles kind of attached. They are squeezing this food going into the stomach directly too. Yes, we get some help of the some gravity, which is kind of pulling all things downwards to your stomach, but it's actually muscle movement and moving, pushing it downward more easily. But if you think about some of the indigestion, if you experience a heartburn, not really absorbing the foods too, that's probably due to like some muscles that I'm really moving towards to, like moving to like squeezing those foods down into stomachs as well too. Okay, so the things we've got to consider about into oesophagus, but it's simply given. It's given a long, narrow tube that passes through to the pharynx to the stomach by peristalsis, and the oesophagus has no other digestive function. It simply means it's a transport tubules. That's it. It doesn't have any enzyme. It's basically connecting that from here to there. Make sense? Okay. Now, more important thing comes after in the stomach. Now, this is a stomach. As you know, the stomach looks like this, in shape of the. It's actually the size of the fist is what we know as a stomach, but they're easily get expanded too. Stomach has a very important functions for both mechanical and chemical. So please highlight this point here. The churning movements of the stomach's thick muscular walls complete the mechanical breakdown of the food. As I described that as, you can think about the piggy bank, and you basically shake it. And what you can hear is, you can probably coins kind of go colliding to each other too, just like the stomach's kind of shaking to each other too. It's kind of vibrating, so that the churning movement also makes food with the digestive fluid secreted by the mouth, as by the stomach, and one more thing is the hydrochloric acid. It contains the very strong acid in your sac. Why do we need to do it? Because it kills the bacteria in the food and gives the stomach the lower pH needed for the digestive enzyme. Those enzymes are, highlight this one, pepsin, which is chemically digest the proteins. Digestion is like it's breaking down the protein into small parts of the amino acids. And they also store the partially digested food until the small intestine is ready to receive it. When the small intestine is empty, a sphincter opens to allow the partially digested food to enter the small intestine after. So this is the reason why it has kind of shape of the bear shape. Can you see like there's a food kind of remain on the bottom here? Okay, could you see that? This is the point of the food kind of remained. So once the small intestine is open to, they open up the sphincter, which is like the entrance of the or exit of the stomach, and kind of squishing that. So you maybe see like in the time the stomach is kind of moving or the grumbling too. So and then it goes to our small intestine. Small intestine, whether you knew or not, you have 7 meters of a small intestine in your body. How long is 7 meters, by the way? It's basically, this is about like 3 meters there. So about like second floor, there's 2 floors of the buildings. Yeah, you have that much of that long of the small intestine. But you don't realize that you're having that, carrying that in your stomach because simply they are like crumble, like all that kind of mix and jumbles too. So in the site of the most chemical digestions happen in that and absorptions too. And it consists of 3 parts. Highlight that please. We have the duodenum, zizinium, and the ileums. There are 3 parts of the small intestine. So the first part is a duodenum. It's the first and the shortest part of the small intestine, and this is something that takes a lot of place. It's many digestive enzymes are active in the duodenum, so the first and the shortest. So it's showing you the where that is. Do we have the picture in the next? Yeah, we have a picture in the next door. Okay. Next page is show that duodenum, the place of that. Can you see that? This is the stomach, and this is the shortest but thickest duodenum of the small intestine, which we would say the first part of the small intestine now. Now, what you'll be able to see here is the liver and pancreas are connected or close to the duodenum. So this is basically after food goes to the from stomach to duodenum, go to here. All those chemicals from liver, gallbladder, and pancreas are secreting towards to the duodenum. So you may think of a bell chain. This is the point that they are putting everything down, ingredient into it, so that they can start to digesting it, all the nutrients. The type of the enzyme goes to duodenum is given here. We have given maltase, which is digesting carbohydrate even further. We have a peptase and the proteins, and sometimes go to lipase of that too. So all the carbohydrate, lipid, fat, and proteins, they will start to get digested at the duodenum given. And they're releasing these, all that too. Even the amylase from the saliva is re-released again in the pancreas. So pancreas is something that very, very, very important in terms of that releasing all the necessary like enzymes to your body, to your duodenum specifically too. So what do? They are basically breaking down all the nutrients, fat, lipid, carbohydrate, and the protein into small pieces. So getting ready to get it absorbed after that. And then we get the liver is coming down to. Do you have a section of liver? I'm pretty sure I have that too. Okay, it's not really given. So let's go to the next point. Page 77, the point in the bottom place after that. The liver is an organ of the both digestion and excretion. Please highlight that. Liver is very important in terms of digestion and excretions too. So what do? They produce a fluid called the bile, and which is secreted into the duodenum. And bile also goes to the gallbladder and second like organ stores that too. So what does the bile do? The bile breaks up the large globules of the lipids into smaller globules, and then easier of the enzyme to break down too. So bile is not something that dissolving lipid in your body, kind of helping that dissolve that into smaller lipid fat form into some small like fatty acid. Okay. And then bile also reduces the acidity of the food entering the high acidic stomachs too. And this is important because digestive enzyme that works in the duodenum needs a neutral environment. So have a think about this way too to understand the memorizing this. Daniel, what if we have a patient with the liver failure? There are people with the liver failure quite a lot. It's quite a huge portion, and that's kind of related to diabetes later on too. What if they have a failure in the liver? What do you think about their symptoms then? This is the way you can memorizing it. You got to think about, rather you memorize in the correct function of that too. Think about here. What if they failed? What if they not work functioning? What happens to your body?
If the liver fails to function, it would cause a buildup in lipids.
Yeah, I mean, there's nowhere we can digest the lipid.
It would also reduce the amount of
Bile. So, let's think about it. If they fail the lipid, where does all the lipids go then?
all the lipids would be stuck in the intestine.
Stuck in the intestine. I mean, they will probably not get digested properly too. So, possible chance of that we have stuck, as you said, stuck of the lipid in your digestive system because they cannot be dissolved. They cannot be broken down into, or maybe they can just they cannot be really absorbed as well too. So you may get the diarrhea in terms of that to washing them out. So they will be oh, we can't just absorb that, just get them out. So we got to put the less extra excess water to wash them out too. Okay, that's one. What about the in terms of the neutralizing acidity? Because the bile is the liver has the activity of neutralizing the acidity of your stomach. What if they fail? We have a failure, the liver failure.
Well, like I said earlier, it would reduce the production of bile.
Yeah.
And bile it almost neutralizes food once it enters after it enters the stomach.
Yeah. So it means what? Can your stomach acid be neutralized ever if we have a liver failure? Never. I mean, there's nothing to. There will be some, but there'll be limited how much we can neutralize the stomach acid. Now think about here. You're carrying a stomach acid. We need to have something to neutralize it. If the bile is not secreted by the liver failure, your stomachs keep secreting the stomach acid, leading to what? Some inflammation in your stomachs, highly likely, or maybe your stomach failure too, which can cause up to the cancer. In terms of the damaged cells kind of accumulate all the times too. Remember that this has got to be happen 24/7. I mean, there's no break, and this got to be happen like every single hour or the minute or within seconds too. Another thing is that those digestive foods with the acidic goes to the small intestine. Now think about what happened to small intestine after receiving the acidic foods. There will be some failure of the other parts of that too. There will be damage of the small intestine too. Okay, so this is you got to think about why is it so important in terms of functions. I'm not going to touch that. What's the treatments after that too? There's a field of medicals, but up to the biology, we call the pathologies. In terms of that, you got to understand why this is very important, because if you fail that, it can happen it will cause some of the other things too. There's a times that the oyster figure is kind of burned due to some of the cases people are drinking some acid instead of they thought they could have water, they drank that, so they get permanent damage to oyster figures. So that what they do, they can't really swallow it, or they might getting older too. They have some damage in the neck as well too. They can't really swallow it. Do you know what they do? They place the hole in the stomach directly too and shove it in the food into the stomach. So they can't really chew instead, because even if they swallow too, there's nowhere. You can think about breakage. There's not really connected to. There's a surgery connecting this here, but it's got shortened too. So a lot of time they'll lose their appetite due to that too. Okay, so if you want to understand some of the functions too, think about what if we don't have it. What's going to be a side effect after that too? It'll be much easier to way. Rather you try to just sitting down and try to memorize the functions boringly too. It's got to be much more interesting. Well, what if we fail that and that too? Same for the small intestine, which is coming after. Now, small intestine is the article, like, I mean, everything is important, but still, it's one of the most important part of the digestive system, because this is the place that we take in both of the secretion, digestion, and absorption, especially the absorption. Your stomach doesn't absorb. But your small intestine, they are starting absorbing the nutrients after the digestions. So absorption small intestine it maybe contains all that too. Prior to come to small intestine, carbohydrates is breaking down into sugar, even really simple, all the monosaccharides. Proteins break down into the small piece of the amino acids. Lipids are breaking down into the fatty acids. And even sometimes just in the fat as well too. Okay? Or just simply fat. So once they're broken down into some chemical digestive substance too, now important to remember those like an enzyme activities as too. They are small enough to pass through the thin wall of the villi. Highlight that place, villi. I think you guys watched that in the microscope last time in the sample the small intestine. You have a lot of those kind of structures here. Can you see like it's a lot of those kind of folded inside of that small intestine too? Now, whole purpose of that is we want to maximize the what? The surface area. So if you think about it, we are expandable. Remember that we have 7 meters of a small intestine, but inside of that even we have a folded too. So if we try to expand that, ironing all that, it may go up to the 50 meters. Okay, due to that, we are able to absorbing the nutrients efficiently, really quickly too. It doesn't take, think about it. You had a breakfast. By this time now, if you had a breakfast at 9 o'clock, by this time now, your foods get absorbed fully in your body. That's pretty quick if you think about it. It only takes about a few hours to digest the foods, or they're absorbing the nutrients as well too. So this is due to that kind of structure look like this. Can you see that? There are goes with small intestine, really small, thin, large surface area, and a lot of the blood vessels kind of contained inside of that too. Maximizing what? The fastest, efficient absorption of the food and the nutrients from that too. And then this, would this go through the what kind of diffusion? What kind of diffusion do you think they go through? These given here. Think about it. Like we learned the diffusion, didn't we? Yeah. Facilitated diffusion would be definitely one of that too, because they're big chunk. They're not the gases. Both the gases they will go for like in a passive transport, like basically throughout the cell walls easily too. Now amino acid, they're chunky and big, so it's either be the facilitated diffusion. Does it require any energy? Facilitated diffusion? No, it is a passive diffusion. Does it require the protein channel? Yeah, think about it. This is how you relate to that over here. They do go through the facilitated diffusion. Time to time, just active diffusions, maybe just diffusion, depends how small the things are. Okay, but important thing is passive diffusion is going through what? They fall into the concentration gradient. So it means that inside of the small intestine we have a large concentration. Outside there were small there are less concentrations too. So they will be moving really quickly outside it too. Does that make sense? Give me some ideas about how to relate the diffusion to this kind of digestive system, even for the respiratory systems too. Everything's kind of correlated. So you really need to understand what's going on in there. Okay, microvilli, even the small end goes there too, even further small. All right. After all the nutrients food goes into your small intestine, it now goes to the last part of your, second last I should say, digestive system, which is the large intestine. And this is the structure of the large intestine, as you can see. And large intestine has a bit of that too, and the feces coming out. From the small intestine to the center okay, you don't really need to memorize all the details about large intestine, to be honest, in terms of anatomy-wise. unless you want to become you want to be a doctor or you work in the medical field. But what important thing is this? Large intestine is something very important, as not as much as small intestine, because it's the one that absorbing the water. Okay, it's the one that eliminate the waste as well too. So up to the small intestine, you got to think about here. There are a mix of all the water and all the dissolved foods up to that too. Now, when it goes to the large intestine, out from the loop of the large intestine, they are reabsorbing the water from that too. Small intestine doesn't really absorb the water. So, which means large intestine would go through a lot of the osmosis in terms of absorbing the water. And that's basically what happens if you have your large intestine failed. You may just go like a diarrhea quite a lot of times too, because they are not able to absorb in the water. Does it make sense? Diarrhea is basically the failure of the water absorption, or like kind of washing out, flushing all your things out too. So in terms of that, we have given these and the first part of the large intestine, and waste are the liquid state, and they pass through the colons, with the second part of the large intestine, excess water is absorbed there too. And remaining solid waste are called the feces, or dung, we may say. The feces accumulate in the rectum, and which are the third part of the large intestine. The rectum is the part of the muscle kind of connected, this part over here. This is the part they had connected with the muscles. Muscles kind of making these to be feces structures too. And it's connected to your last part of the digestive system, which is the anus, and ejected out of your body. Yep, so it's very important. This is why we're looking into what's in the waste that having that too, see how much absorption we're going through from the foods. Another reason why you need to study about the large intestine is because large intestine contains a lot of the good bacteria. Next page, please. So what are the good bacteria I'm talking about? Okay, who has heard about probiotics? Okay, who's eating probiotics here? Not really. I'm not really talking about the tablets and medications too. Yogurts, milk, some of the things you probably see that probiotic contain as well too. You probably see quite a lot. What is a probiotic, by the way? And why do you like eating them? Why do you recommend to eat them?
I guess like pro means like for biotics.
Mm-hmm.
So we have antibiotics which like kill
Yeah.
what do you call it, bacteria.
Oh yeah. I love the approach.
Probiotics means it increases bacteria count.
But you got to think about here. Why we sometimes getting the antibacterial or antibiotics, which is killing bacteria, but why are we like sometimes ask you to having the probiotic, or they helping those bacteria? The reason is pretty simple. So if you get a flu, not the flu, so like the cold, or like something it's infection, that's probably due to the some bacteria. But article those bacteria are really harmful. For example, E. coli is one of the things you will hear a lot too. They are harmful, which can cause a diarrhea. Okay. Now, in a case we're having that, we are taking some antibiotics or antibacterial, which is killing that bacteria. But that antibacterial actually can kill all other bacteria that are living in your bodies too. And this is the reason why the doctors are hesitating to giving you antibacterials all the times. Okay. Now, probiotic, which we can find in your yogurts or some other foods, or even the tablets too, are giving some foods for the bacteria that are good bacteria that are living in your large intestine. So what do? As we're giving the foods for them, we're kind of cultivating in your large intestine. And the important thing is, why do we then need to carry those good bacteria in your body? Well, one purpose is that it is controlling the growth of the harmful bacteria. So even if you get like some invasion of the harmful bacteria, like a flu, those bacteria are fighting against them. So increasing, you might have heard about, they are boosting your immunity, because we are getting more good bacteria in here. 2, breaking down in digestive food components too. They're even further breaking down into, so helping you to digest it even further. So which is what? More efficient in terms of the absorption. 3, producing substances that help prevent colon cancer. This is a very important thing as well too. A lot of times people will experience with their large intestine cancer, they actually need to cut the whole section of the large intestine. and that can cause them to depress all the immunities and levels too. Last one is breaking down toxins before they can poison the body as well too. So I hope that give you lessons there why you have to eat the probiotics more often too, constantly. So it's kind of helping your bacteria, good bacteria can survive and prolong for a longer period of time. And there was actually one investigation. It's a bit little disgusting too. The feces, which is like a large feces of the anyone, can actually have a bit of bacteria inside of that too, from the large intestine. There was way it's actually like a therapeutic approach too. The doctors or maybe the scientists collect the feces of the young, healthy athletes, really healthy athletes. Okay, so like you may say like an Olympic gold medalist too. What they do, they implant that into the sick person's large intestine. And they're kind of disgusting too. You collect the dung of the athlete, put it into the patient or with the large intestine cancer or the large intestine disease, the intestine too, and they found out the person actually improved quite a lot of the immunity levels due to that. This is basically implanting the good bacteria into that as well too. So this is actually kind of interesting topic. I know it's kind of disgusting, like, oh, how could you like put someone's feces into your body? Don't worry, you're not eating it. You're basically having a surgical procedure to put them into your bodies too. But that's kind of giving us some ideas about how important they're carrying the good bacteria in your large intestine bodies too. So there's a reason why I put the large intestine very important in your digestive system, not only for the digestive system, for the immunity levels as well too. I hope that kind of story of the digestive system giving you some ideas about why it's so important understanding that too. Okay? So I would like you to answer some of the questions at the back over here too, page 82 and 83. There are some kind of revision questions, and we'll go through the some answers for them together. Give it about 8 minutes. leave the question 3. We're going to do the question 3 together to go through there too. So finish up the 1 and 2. Shouldn't take too much to do it. Okay, let's start with question 1. Define the term digestion. Ellie, how do you define a digestion?
Human body requires foods for metabolism, and the job of the digestive system to chemical change is the change of chemical, the complex molecules to the food into simple
Yeah, but I feel like there's some missing there. Write this one there. Digestion can be summarized as the process of, or by which the process by which the food is first is broken down into smaller and more like absorbable excuse me, components. Ooh. Okay, how many types of the digestions then we have, Daniel? 2. What are those?
Chemical and physical.
Chemical, physical?
Wait.
You mean mechanical?
Yeah.
Mechanical and chemical. Can you tell me a little more about mechanical digestion, please?
So mechanical digestion, it physically breaks down the food into smaller pieces for the body to be able to, for it to be able to travel down the esophagus.
Good. Doesn't have to be esophagus. The stomach is also doing the physical digestion too. So let's write it down here. Broken down, which is good, into the smaller space. The smaller the pieces by the teeth. This is the one, and the muscular contraction. In the digestive tract is what we call the mechanical. And the whole purpose that is increase the surface area to the volume. Okay, or simply surface area, I just not the volume too, of the food. And why do we do that? Should we increase surface area to the volume? As we increase the surface area to the volume of the food, it's for the enzyme, it's much easier to work. Okay, so you may say making easier for enzyme to chemically break them down. It's what we call as mechanical, first of all, then too. What about chemical? Chemical digestions. Okay, this is the place that enzyme take a place. So enzyme is now coming and break down complex. Break down the complex food molecules. Okay, and then into the simpler like in the molecules, and then that the body can absorb and utilize. So these enzymes, think about here, we took the pepsin, amylase, all like the maltose, all like involved in the chemical digestions too. 2. Outline the main functions of the digestive system. So in terms of main functions of that, it can summarize the 3. One is the digestion, as we said. So I think we had enough about the digestions. Second is the absorption. But okay, let's write it down then. Where those digestions happen in your digestive systems? Digestions, whether that's mechanical and chemicals, it happens in your mouth. Okay, and we can think about salivary, the glands, which is the excreting the saliva, is one thing too. Stomach is the one that's going through a digestion process, both mechanical and physical, mechanical and the chemicals too. Small intestine is the place that's taking place of digestion, further breaking down into small pieces, especially the duodenum, like from the connected from stomach to that. And think about all other things, like what? Liver is the one that liver is the one that like release the biles, and we talked about what happens if you get liver failure. Remember that it is digesting the fats as well as it's also neutralizing the acid as well too. Gallbladder, pancreas, it's got to be related to all the digestive organs in terms of digestions. Absorption, it happens when into more like in the small intestine. But let's talk a little more about small intestine in here. Ellie, what's the main features of the small intestine that making them to have them really, really good at absorbing the food and nutrients? From what? With large surface area. Okay, large surface area. From what? The special feature of that. Due to villi, so villi, and even the microvilli. Okay, so write this one down, the villi here too. So in the small intestine, if you think about it here, this kind of like things with the capillaries there, or the villis, even that, we have a hair like. So villis is this, microvillis are the small hair like of that too. So even further, like increase in surface area due to that. And they'll be able to absorbing that quite quickly too. So think about what kind of diffusion going to happen in here. The last function of the digestive system is elimination. And where does it take place, the eliminations? It's to take place most likely in the large intestine. I mean, this is the last place that we're taking all the things out. What are we eliminating? Daniel, what are we eliminating then?
Food waste.
Food waste? Anything else? What about we have an indigestion?
Indigestion.
Can the indigestion means, as we now know what do you mean by the digestions too? Indigestion means what?
Indigestion means food that hasn't been broken down.
Yeah, it couldn't be broken down. Maybe due to many purposes
For
too.
example, like lactose.
Yeah, maybe. Like so, now you know what I mean by lactose intolerance. We don't have, if you don't have an enzyme that are digesting the lactose, you can't really digesting it. So what happened?
You just have to excrete it.
Excrete it. Like this is why you get a massive diarrhea. People with the lactose intolerance, as they cannot digest it, so the issue is the lactose kind of mix with the water. So large intestine cannot absorb the water either too. So basically food waste and those we call indigested foods as well too. Okay, and that's through the rectum, followed by anus. It's a pathway of that too. 3 main functions. So You gotta think about why we need it, why we need the fat or the nutrients. Do you remember, like in the last chapter of the module 1, it's all about why we need to absorbing that too. All right, let's do question 3. Identify and create a flow chart to show the structure. Sorry, the net structures that food must pass through the typical mammalian digestive systems. Shall we draw that? Shall we think about it here? So think about draw a diagram of that too. Not really good at so you can think about mouth. Mouth. You like this? Okay, we've got to think about what happens to this person here. Oh, not bad. Okay. So let's see what happened inside of this here. You can think about, let's draw that, actually, drawing is helping you to get this one. This is called the salivary, saliva. Yeah, give it space. Gland. Okay, and think about this, the function of that too. This is the releasing the saliva, and which is containing with what's inside saliva, guys? What enzyme?
Amylase.
Amylase. Yep. Keyword to goes to. Okay, we have teeth. Not good at during the teeth. So as long as it's making sense, that's fine. Just we have a tongue. So teeth, mouth with teeth, and the tongue. Tongue is helping us for what? The mechanical digestion is happening. So basically chewing and just tearing, grinding, all that happen. After that we have pharynx, goes down here like this. You may think about the human bodies. That too. So this part is called the oesophagus, which has a function of just described a little bit too. It's called a muscular tube. Muscular tube passing food down to the stomach. And then you may show a stomach, the forms of that. This is called the now stomach. Ellie, what's happened in the stomach? Think about 3 features of the stomach there.
It breaks down the protein.
Proteins, yeah, by pepsin. So hydrochloric acid, okay, let's write it down. That's chemistry class. Hydrochloric acid. Okay, release is contain that too. So pepsin. Pepsin is a really special type of the enzyme. It can only survive in the really low pH, which is pepsin that digesting what? The fat. Sorry, the protein. I should say the protein. Hydrochloric acid is basically lowering the pH, as well as is killing all the bacteria. It's a function of that too. Anything else with the stomach? It actually it has the mechanical digestion as well too. Just give me a summary of everything, as you go. Okay, besides that, we have the section called the really thick kind of small intestine. So you may say small intestine, but let's give specific here. Duodenum. Oh, duodenum, sorry, always get trouble with duodenum, the large part of the small intestine part of that too. Okay, why is the duodenum important? Why do we just separate them from the small intestine? It's part of small intestine though, but
The duodenum is connected to the pancreas,
Mm-hmm.
the gallbladder, and the liver, all of which. Okay, so the
pancreas
releases pancreatic juices. The gallbladder.
Oh, very good. So let's draw the pancreas.
Produces bile.
Yep, pancreas. You may think about pancreas structures. And we have a liver on the top. And there is a gallbladder. It's given there too. Oh, this is a kind of big fat liver, by the way, compared to the diagram. Doesn't matter, actually. So duodenum, let's talk a little more about that. So you're right, it's receiving the pancreas juice. Guys, juice doesn't mean like this, like an orange juice I'm talking about here. It simply means all the enzymes inside of that too. So in terms of the pancreatic juice, it's actually pancreatic, not the pancreas, pancreatic juice contains some enzymes like amylase. It also contains the trypsin. And the last, it contains some of the lipase. Okay, and also get the bile. Function of bile again is two functions. One is the it's emulsifying, so basically emulsifying or like digesting the fat is the one example there too. And then neutralizing the stomach acid is what happens in duodenums, which is a small intestine here. And it goes to, this is going to connect the two really long tubules of the small intestine. I just try my best to show the small intestine about here. Okay, so that's a small intestine now. Let's talk about here with the villi and the microvilli. So what happens here? This is the point that we get the absorption a lot of times too. So you throughout the surface area, that's something we discussed now. And then this goes to the large intestine. This goes to the large intestine, which is going around. And goes like this. Okay, so large intestine. Yes, we have a bacteria there too, but let's talk a little more focus on the digestive system. This is the absorption of the water. That's what it happens to. And with the good bacteria, of course, too. And the fecal rectum. And that part is called the anus. What we given to. I kind of exaggerated this part of it though too, but you know. I always think back to this kind of my friend Max, to the real size of that too. Now you don't really need to worry about size of that for now. As long as you know what's going on in each of the digestive systems and just memorizing all that too, it should be okay. Okay, that's how we can divide the mammalian or human, first of all, human digestive system. What we know for that, the other like a digestive system of the mammals, they actually follows something very similar to humans too. Like if you think about dogs or cats or even cows, you know, we all eat those like not dogs and cows by the way, and cows intestine, all the livers too. Yes, it's a matter of how many stomach, the structure of stomachs too, depends on what kind of foods they have, and depends on what enzyme that they do. But they are having really similar structures as us too. But we started from the human digestive system because it gives us some ideas about, you know, overall digestive system, including all the functions of the digestion, absorption, and elimination for now. Okay. All right, next page, page 84, please. Let's talk a little more about the nutrients and gas requirements for this. And we're going to have a break after this. So in terms of those, the nutrients that we need to live. Next page, please. This is page 84. What we're going to do is we're going to divide into the autotrophs and the heterotrophs. So autotrophs, you can just write it down as, these are the typical example of the plants. Oh, do you need more time to copy that down?
Just a bit.
Okay, I'll give you a minute more, minute or two. I think drawing the some respiratory structure is actually pretty interesting, and we're going to learn about circulatory system, the heart as well too. It's also very important to know the heart structure too.
Is that amylase?
Amylase, trypsin, lipase or lipase. Okay. We will have a chance to talk a little more about plants, the respiratory system and digestive system too. I mean, the plants is kind of different too. So the page in the next page, we gives you some more ideas about, you know, some difference between two. Not bad, yeah. I do it like every year, but I think I'm getting better because I'm drawing the better. Like even the large intestine kind of exaggerated too. All right, let's talk a little more about difference between autotrophs and heterotrophs. Now, autotrophs, the easiest way to think about autotroph is simply plants. Those are automatically they're able to produce the energy by themselves. Heterotroph, like animals like us or anything, they cannot produce the energy by themselves. We have to eat something. We have to drink something. Okay? So, in terms of the oxygen gas for the autotrophs, they diffuse into the plant across the cell surfaces. What about us? Where do we use those? How do we get the oxygen? We use the diffusion, so it diffuses into the through the surface. What about water? Where do you think the plants get the water from? The root. They get the diffusers from the roots. Us, we are basically, not required, it's forced to, delete that. We are doing what? Where do we get the water from? We ingest it from our digestive, the system. So you may just kind of see the comparison between what system they have in the plant, what system we have in the animals too. Okay, what about carbon dioxide? Autotrophs, they do get they basically diffuses into plants or the leaves, more likely. What about us? Do we need to get the carbon dioxide in? We don't need it, so it's not required. We don't really get that. We try to remove that too. And same for the autotroph, they try to remove some of the carbon dioxide, but they do need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. CO2 is one of the ingredients for the photosynthesis. Glucose, where do we get that? Now, we get ingested in the digestive system as either simple or complex carbs and absorbed into their bloodstreams. What about the autotrophs? They don't need to ingest. I mean, they can ingest more, but they do actually produce from the photosynthesis. It's what they do. Proteins and lipids, they're produced by the plant from the glucose and the mineral ions. They actually themselves producing the proteins and the fat. Us, we can't really do. So we basically do what? We're getting ingested, okay, into the digestive system, into the digestive systems, okay, in forms of the as the amino acid, fatty acids, and even for like some glycerols. Glycerol is a term that we use. Same for the mineral ions, salt, in other words, sodium chloride, or like potassium, magnesium, or the minerals you're talking about, vitamins. We get ingested from the digestive system as well too. We get everything. But what about the plants? Plants, they're through the roots. They get that through the roots by the diffusion and active transport in the case of that. So compared to the humans or mammalian or the animals, the digestive and the respiratory system, plants are more like straight, like kind of simple, and you can tell from their even structure difference between two, less complex. But main things about the plant is they are able to do the photosynthesis. Us, we cannot do. So while we're studying about the respiratory and digestive, like in that same chapter, these two other systems that we are talking about getting some necessities for the lives, including the gases and nutrients and the water. Okay, so this is all about how do we handle with those ingestion of those gases, or I guess exchange as well too, and ingestion of the necessary like the nutrients in our body. Okay, so it's good to know how they're functioning too in much in depth and details too. So after the break, we're going to do some more questions related to the human respiratory and digestive systems. Okay, next week I think we can move on to the next one, which is the transport system in the we're going to finish the animals first, by the way, and then move it on to plants slowly. And transport system is going to be something kind of interesting that I can talk about some hearts and your circulatory systems. We don't really talk about the nervous system in year 11. This is going to be happening in year 12. So we're going up to digestive, respiratory, and circulatory, maybe some immunity system, a little bit of pancreas, some excretory systems, but that should be okay for now. Okay, any questions? Okay, take a break.